Before I begin, this video is made in partnership with eAthlete Labs. If you want to take esports seriously and improve drastically, then I highly recommend the Esports Elite Gaming course. It's a step-by-step training program that teaches you how to improve up to 2 times faster so you can develop top-level aiming skills as well as learning the knowledge to play at the highest level. It includes over 50 short videos that combines real, legitimate scientific research on how to enhance your mechanical skills, enhance your mindset and motivation, and become a much smarter player through increasing your game sense. The first 4 days of the course are on the long-term fundamentals of becoming a top esports pro by focusing on your mindset and motivation. The following 3 days are then on honing in your game knowledge by taking a different perspective on learning. Days 8 through 10 are then on developing your mechanical skill, and the last, but certainly not least, days of the course are on forming a training routine and ensuring that the following 66 days after the course are put to good use. Fortunately, these guys were kind enough to give me access to the course, and honestly, it's a ton of content. My personal favourite aspect has to be the videos, of course. And even after all this, if you're still skeptical because of the price tag, they're so confident in the course that if you're not seeing significant improvement in your skills, you can get a 100% refund within 60 days, making this completely risk-free. So, if you're interested, feel free to join using the link in the description. Considering the educative, professional research and style of my content, I think a lot of you guys would absolutely love the course, and I think it fits my channel perfectly. Just as a small disclaimer for the tier list, this will mainly be based upon the value ceiling of each hero, meaning how good each hero is realistically at their perfect or professional level, but other factors such as their versatility will be taken into account. I'll try to include the experiences of both ranked and scrims as well. Starting off in F tier, we actually have none of the heroes. I believe that in both ranked and in professional settings, you could, even in highly situational moments, build or play around any of the heroes in your comp. Moving on to E tier, we have Bastion. Bastion's obvious and glaring weakness is his immobility, but I do believe that on some maps, using Symmetra's teleport can alleviate this greatest downfall of Bastion, but even then, ult economy and angles up against Bastion's Symmetra can easily crumble this comp. Ending off E tier is Moira. Due to her somewhat recent Coalescence nerf, I believe that she is simply too niche of a hero to play. There's just almost no situation you'd want to play Moira over her counterparts, being Bap, Ana and Zen, apart from Talon Dive, but even then, the Coalescence nerf impacted the comp's power to some degree. I did recently make a Talon Dive guide though, so if you're curious about the comp, check the top right. Starting in the D tier, we have Roadhog. I think his value ceiling is higher than what most think, especially with the damage buff quite a while back, increasing his damage by around 10%, making his one-shots more reliable, and if anything, he's just a poor man's Sigma. Next up we have Genji. I contemplated putting Genji lower, but he can be useful in Cyber Dive in terms of ult economy, and in ranked, players such as Cavalry really show the ceiling of Genji, alongside Nanoblade still being a strong combo in ranked specifically. Starting off the C tier, we have Reaper. Reaper is a situational pick and brawl or Talon Dive, and is highly map dependent on important enclosed spaces such as Hotel on King's Row first defense. Next up we have Doomfist. Doomfist Brawl is a very strong comp in scrim settings and even in Contenders from a few months back, but it has become less popular over time, with simple scouting or CC or kiting making Doomfist a less effective pick. If you miss your cooldowns, your value also drastically decreases, and let's not even talk about your Meteor Strike. After Doomfist is Widowmaker. Likewise to Reaper, she's quite map dependent and thrives on having very long sightlines on maps like Junkertown first or Havana third. However, she's nothing more than a situational pick in range dive and spam comps. Next up is Junkrat, who I originally put in A tier with the experimental changes, but those didn't go through for Junkrat or McCree unfortunately. Still, Junkrat Brawl certainly isn't unheard of, either in Contenders or in high level scrims, or in high level ranked on some maps, making him a situational pick. Rounding off the C tier is Zarya. Now there isn't anything wrong with Zarya per se, but it's just that our counterparts, being D.Va and Sigma, are significantly better at map and high ground control. However, at high charge, you can force duels on any squishy in the game, but suffers, likewise to others in the C tier, from certain maps in this case having too much high ground. Moving on to the B tier, where we start to get a lot more heroes. First up is Mercy. Generally speaking in this tier, there'll be a lot of poke oriented heroes, who I do believe are solid picks, but especially in the case of Mercy, she is very one-dimensional and costly to her other flex support in terms of anti-dive capabilities. Next up we have Zen. Back when poke dive was a lot stronger 2 months ago, and when Zen didn't have his barrage of nerfs, he'd definitely be A tier at least. But now, brawl comps have been able to close the distance, lowering Zen's value, and Brig being more versatile and being the safer option. Following Zen is Pharah. I think Pharah has always been a good or even great pick, with players just not adapting their playstyle, unlike renowned Pharah players such as Yuzna. After Pharah is Orisa, who I think is a little underrated. She can be flexible to brawl on some maps, has a solid ultimate, high survivability, but isn't a must pick in poke comps. Next up is Ana, who in short is just the poor man's Baptiste. In scrims and even in ranked, Ana is very strong in dive and very mediocre in brawl and poke, meaning that you have to get nade value in order to outvalue the opposing flex support. After Ana is Winston. Main tanks in ranked are often hard to judge due to how team reliant they are, hence why Winston is lower than someone like Wrecking Ball, with players especially not being able to play dive tanks. In scrims however, and even in ranked when referring to value ceiling, Winston is very solid and can be a defining factor to a team. After Winston is Ashe and Hanzo, who are both paired together as they're both poke-oriented heroes. Ashe essentially has a stronger and underrated ultimate with AoE damage, whereas Hanzo has a stronger capability to play short and long range with stronger burst damage, making Hanzo the more versatile pick in poke brawl hybrids. Next up we have Soldier. With no bloom and some damage buffs, he is one of, if not, the best solo queue ranked hero in the game. However, he falters up against Tracer and Sombra, who are quite often in ranked, as this eliminates a key playstyle of Soldier, which is the hard flank. In scrims, he's even worse than you would imagine, being a poor man's hit scan in poke comps and being subpar in dive comps. Rounding off the B tier is Reinhardt. Again, in ranked, due to how many resources he requires, he can be an unreliable pick even at the top ranks, with Super showing the duality of Reinhardt in top 500 in his videos. However, with Brawl being as strong as it is, the game sense required to play Ryan at the top level is very high. Moving on to the largest tier of them all, A tier. First off we have Lucio, often a must pick in brawl comps with flexible playstyles such as the Reddit Lucio, with Red Shell being a great example. Next up we have Sombra, again a very reliable pick with arguably the strongest ultimate in the game. However, up against Torb, comps such as Talon Dive where Sombra features will be harder to run, alongside the fact that Sombra isn't great into poke comps and Sombra's range factor as a flanker gets eliminated. Torb is next to follow, who in short is a McCree with stronger anti-dive capabilities at the cost of reliable damage. His overload is very strong against dive and now even stronger when used aggressively to take duels, alongside his shotgun ammo being even stronger up against any variation of dive. The second to last off tank we have in the A tier is Sigma. He's an all around great pick, especially in ranked, being well known for the do-it-all hero and one of the best duelists in the game with a shield, ranged poke, CC, regenerative tools, all without bleeding ult charge. Following Sigma is Symmetra. Now in your typical platinum rank game, she isn't very great, but we are talking about value ceiling here, and in both ranked and scrim games at the highest level, Symmetra has the potential to bring unrivaled value with her fully charged beam and a teleport, allowing a brawl team to skip difficult rotations or baiting out rotations, giving brawl some added complexity. Next up is Wrecking Ball, who is one of the most self-reliant tanks in the game and has almost always been a great pick into every team comp. His flexibility has given him way to being in hybrid comps, particularly poke dive or brawl dive, and is arguably a Winston on steroids with his pile driver and tons of weird tech. Next to Wrecking Ball we have Echo, who's always been an all-around reliable pick, having very strong poke damage whilst having the mobility to add into a surgical dive comp. Echo is also a great projectile counter to Pharah, with the only issue with Echo being her matchup against hard brawl comps. Speaking about not doing so well against brawl comps, we have Tracer. Tracer has always been a great pick from release, but is kinda questionable when facing brawl. With that being said, her extreme ability and duel potential makes her a must pick for wanting to retain map control. Next up is Brigitte. Brig's always been in at least a pretty good state to being borderline the most broken hero in the game, and despite her reworks and copious nerfs, her anti-dive capabilities are unrivaled in the support category, being the make or break for some comps. Even Brig Lucio rush comps has seen some play on the top end of console, as well as in professional play in the past and in the current day. Essentially, Brig's ability, likewise to Sigma, to do almost anything in the game will almost always keep her powerful unless Blizzard nerf her into the ground. Onto the penultimate hero in the A tier, we have McCree. Now when I originally scripted the video, I put McCree at the bottom of S tier, but top teams have swapped to running more sim and Mei based brawl comps, with McCree being more uncommon. With that being said, he's got great anti-dive capabilities and is always a reliable hit scan and can still be played in brawl with great success, especially on more open maps, giving the brawl team some flexibility. Rounding off the A tier, we have Mei. Mei is quite literally what makes or breaks rush comps, and is the main hero to giving brawl its high ceiling and depth in the first place. In ranked, she's quite hard to pull off unless you're on a certain map like Hanamura first point defense, but there's no character quite like Mei. Even in poke comps, Mei has seen some use, with Mei Sigma being able to control high ground in the past. Moving on to the last, but certainly not least tier, the S tier. First up, in second place, we have Baptiste. I don't think I need to say much, but Immortality Field has completely changed Brawl, alongside having a very reliable and powerful weapon, as well as his contribution to map control with his amp matrix. He will almost always be a mainstay in any poke or brawl comp in the game, and for good reason. And lastly, the best hero in the game in my opinion is D.Va. D.Va is just so incredibly versatile in 90% of comps in Overwatch, and her contribution to map control in Brawl with her boosters is almost unparalleled, and is part of the reason why Zarya is an outdated hero on maps with quite a bit of high ground. Her defense matrix is also a very powerful ability against heavy spam comps when playing brawl or dive, or the hybrid between the two, and she has basically two ultimates with Doom ult and her own ult as well. Unless Sigma gets a massive buff or D.Va gets nerfed into the ground, she'll remain at the top for a long time. Well, that's the video. Again, thanks to eAthlete Labs for sponsoring the video, and be sure to check out the link in the description if you're interested. Until next time.